guys, it's Cece, and today I'm here to talk about Supernatural. I'll be honest, I was wearing a different shirt to film this video, and then right before I clicked record, I was like, no, be honest with yourself, and I had to go out and get one of my plaid shirts, because how can I possibly do a video about Supernatural if I'm not gonna wear plaid? Also, I had this big plan to get out at least a few items of Supernatural merch that I own, but as it turns out, I have none of that with me here at school, and the only thing that I have is this enormous Essential Supernatural book, which, I mean, it's just a huge book. Wait, I'm sorry, that was such a lie. I also have these two bunnies that look like Dean and Cass. Yes. And I also have a Castiel pillow, so at least I have some merch here. Anyway, today I'm going to be talking about my top 10 favorite episodes of the TV show Supernatural. Before we get started, I should explain a little bit of my relationship to the show, I think. Now, one of my key things that I'm going to say here is that I don't watch Supernatural anymore. I haven't watched since season 10, and I don't really plan on ever catching up. Supernatural was my favorite show for a lot of years. A lot of years. I invested a lot of time and money and effort into Supernatural. But after season 10, I just decided that it wasn't the show I fell in love with anymore, so I stopped watching it. Also, I feel like I should explain the fact that Castiel is my favorite character. Now, if I'm choosing between the two brothers, Dean is my favorite. I adore Dean, and he's my second favorite character in the show, but my favorite character is Castiel, which I feel will be reflected in some of my favorite episode choices. And you know, I thought I would be able to get through this video without admitting this, but let's just be upfront about it and say that I'm an enormous Destiel shipper, okay? That was how I got into the show. It was a huge part of my life for a long time. It was part of me, like, discovering fandom and being involved in fandom. So, yes, I'm an enormous trash can, but there you have it. Full honesty. Let's get into talking about some of these episodes because I feel like I've already admitted more about myself than I really wanted to. So the first episode that I want to mention, coming in at number 10, is Goodbye Stranger. Goodbye Stranger is from the tail end of season 8, which is my second favorite season. I go back and forth between 5 and 8 being my favorite season. So this episode has a lot of great character interactions, and I think the end of season 8 is incredibly strong. But this is on my list and not sacrificed because it has one of my favorite interactions of all time, and that is the scene in the crypt with Dean and Castiel. I think that this season is when they really allowed Misha Collins to be an impressive figure as Castiel again, and I love the moments that we get to see him breaking through mind control while also being controlled, and the amount of emotion that we get to see from him in this episode is just really well done. It's a sad episode because of course we lose people, but I just think that this is such an accomplishment in terms of character development and character interaction, and honestly, Goodbye Stranger is one of the few episodes of the show that has, like, its own tag for me on my secret hidden Tumblr blog that I'm never telling any of you about, because it's just always going to be a special episode for me. Coming in at number 9, we have All Hell Breaks Loose Parts 1 and 2. This, I couldn't separate them. It is the season finale of season 2. The finale of season 2 is my second favorite finale of the series. It is one of those moments when the stakes are the highest. Up to that point, we've always seen the brothers in danger, but we've never seen real lasting effects. One of the hard and fast rules is your main characters can't ever die, and this messed with that, and I know that they've kind of overused that now. It's become kind of a trope and a thing, but that moment when Sam stumbles into Dean's arms and he's dead was completely shocking to me, and I think is also one of Jensen Ackles' strongest moments in terms of acting. It's an incredible finale, and I couldn't separate these two parts because they each have so much to offer. Coming in at number 8, we have The End. This is an episode that takes place near the beginning of season 5. The apocalypse has happened, Sam has said yes to Lucifer, it's terrible hellscape, but it's a great episode. Even though I love season 8, the reason that I often list season 5 as my favorite season is because this season pushed so many boundaries in terms of storytelling. With season 4 and season 5 introducing really meta elements, introducing going back in time, going forward in time, the angels, there's just such an expansion of storyline in these seasons that it's completely impressive coming from really strong initial seasons. 1 and 2 are great episodes of television, and then 4 and 5 expanded the universe in such monumental ways, and this flash forward is one of my favorite ways that it does that. Impressive episode for Jensen Ackles, where he gets to play 2 versions of himself, and they are so distinct and fascinating. And beyond Jensen, we get to see all 3 of these mains really bring it. Misha Collins gets to play a really different and haunting version of Castiel. Jared Padalecki gets to play Lucifer, and I think he's so excellent at playing Lucifer. Plus, this is just one of my favorite tropes, a character that we know getting thrown into a future and having to establish what's going on around them, seeing how everyone is different. It's a trope I adore, and I think that it was done really well in this particular episode. Coming in at number 7, alright, I have to talk about Lazarus Rising. This is the first episode of season 4, and I have to mention it because it's the introduction of my favorite character, obviously. I think it's the second best introduction to a character that we get. My favorite character introduction will always go to Death. I mean, my god. But like I said about season 5, this episode of season 4 is such an expansion of the world and the mythology of the show. Introducing angels was one of the best things the show did. It just was able to create so many different elements of gray, the fact that there really are no good guys and bad guys, and that the angels are these sort of negative forces too, and Misha Collins gets to walk such an interesting, really alien line, and his introduction is so fabulous. I don't know how to talk about this without being an enormous trash can. It's the introduction of my favorite character. I think it's an excellently done episode. Always a fan of when Bobby's around. He's around a lot in these seasons, so that's also a good thing for me. But it's good. It's the first time Castiel shows up, and I love it for that. Coming in at number 6, we've got Changing Channels. Okay, so I had to include at least one of Gabriel's episodes. In fact, it was a little bit hard not to include them all, because I think that Gabriel makes for really interesting episodes that walk the line between comedy and really serious mythology-building moments. But I chose Changing Channels also because it's so iconic, I think, within the universe. It's so funny, it plays on so many different elements, it's one of the moments when the show gets to be kind of meta and fun. It includes more mythology about the angels. It includes moments of Gabriel getting to be a more serious force at times, which is something that I always appreciated about Gabriel. I just think that for the episodes that Richard Speight Jr. got to be Gabriel, he did an incredible job of making this character someone to remember. Changing Channels is fantastic. I don't know what else to say about that. It's funny and different and great. Coming in at number 5, well, we went from a really happy one to a super sad one, and I want to talk about Abandon All Hope. This is the middle of season 5, and it is the exit of Ellen and Joe. I have both good and bad feelings about this episode because, you know, supernatural killing women happens all the time, but also this was such a good exit for them, and I recognize that they really thought the show was gonna end here, and so they didn't think, you know, they're good and bad, but this episode is really well done, despite the overarching theme of supernatural killing off women. One of the contributing, if not main reasons that I quit watching the show. Ellen and Joe as characters are fantastic. They contributed so much to the storyline, and this is such a beautifully shot episode. It's one of the few episodes where we get to see the entire gang working together. We've got the boys, Bobby, Ellen, Joe, and Castiel all working towards one goal, and I love that. I love when Castiel gets to interact with some of the other side characters, because often side characters aren't really allowed to interact with one another, so it was such a cool thing. And honestly, I sobbed through this episode every single time. The end of it with Ellen and Joe being together and going out together, and it just makes me cry every time. And I just think it's a gorgeously shot, gorgeously written, beautifully done episode in general, in all possible ways. Coming in at number 4, we've got 2 episodes, and I refuse to differentiate them or make them have 2 different spots, and that is the Girl with the Dungeons and Dragons tattoo from the end of season 7, and LARP and the Real Girl from the end of season 8. So the reason I chose these episodes is, of course, Charlie. The reason Charlie was so influential to me is because she was a way of seeing me in my favorite show. She was a nerd and she was a lesbian, and I was like, hey, that's me! I'm a nerd and a lesbian, and now I also get to be involved in Supernatural. Charlie, by the way, is actually the main contributing factor for why I stopped watching the show. That was my last straw. She gets to be fun, she gets to be funny, and Felicia Day is one of my favorite actresses. I adore Felicia Day. I think at the end of season 7, we needed that levity that she brought, that she gets to be she gets to be the fandom. And in LARP and the Real Girl, it's kind of the same effect. It's a really light episode in the midst of all of this more dark stuff that was happening. I also love her in Pac-Man Fever, obviously. I mean, I love the Charlie episodes, but LARP and the Real Girl it also has Lady Love, and I love that. I mean, Pac-Man Fever also has her relationship with her mom. I love Charlie. I love Charlie. She was super important to me as far as seeing myself in a show that I love, and I love her with all of my heart and everything that she brought to the show. Coming in at number 3, we've got The Man Who Would Be King from season 6. The Man Who Would Be King is not just incredible because Cass is my favorite, okay? It's not just that. For most of the show, I mean, almost all of the show, it's very much from the perspective of Dean and Sam, which is great. They're the main characters, and I think that their interactions are so strong, and that's what makes the show. But that is what makes this episode so fascinating, is that we completely get to hear what's going on from another character, and it is one of the most beautifully written episodes of television that I've ever watched. I think Cass is fascinating. That's why I love him. I love that he came from angels and from this distance from humanity, and that he is kind of navigating the feeling of falling and of being human, and he doesn't know how to walk the line between these two worlds. He wants so badly to do good, and he keeps making the wrong decisions, which is exactly what the Winchesters do season after season. And I just love him sitting on a bench and telling his story. I think it is a really powerful way to tell a story. I think that his dialogue in that episode is really well written. I love the clips that we get to see throughout it and the ways that we get to see him fall apart and how much that drains him. It's something that I needed in the midst of season 6 and me not really liking season 6 very much, to have that strong television moment. So good. Alright, coming in at number 2, we've got another episode from season 8, and that is Hunteri Heroici? I feel like it's wrong. I've never figured out how to pronounce this episode name, but it's the episode with cartoons. If you're trying to figure out what's going on, it's the cartoon episode. Now, the reason I adore this episode is because often Castiel only gets to be involved in the storyline when it's like a big storyline. He doesn't get to do Monster of the Week type stuff, and I feel like this episode is a way of showing what it would be like if Monster of the Week stuff happened with Cass there. He's helpful, but he's also sort of obtuse, and he adds a really interesting, third component to investigating what's going on. Plus, this episode is so funny. I love how over the top and cartoony this episode is for obvious reasons. I think even though it's a really strong Monster of the Week episode, we also get to see lots of fascinating conversations between characters, moments where things are clearly going wrong and they're getting a little bit more open about talking about that. But it's a really strong episode, and I think it's a sign of how good episodes can be if they're just Monster of the Week type episodes, but you still allow other characters to be involved in that. And finally, coming in at number 1, you've probably guessed it, this is everybody's favorite episode of Supernatural, but for a reason, and that is Swan Song. This is the finale episode of season 5. There's a reason this is a lot of people's favorite episode. It's an excellent episode of television. It has the narration of Chuck over the top, the little exposition that we get throughout it with the Impala's history, and Sam and Dean's history with the Impala is heartbreaking, but also excellent. I love how strong the brotherly interactions are in this episode. I love that that's the point that we get to, even though it's heartbreaking and heart-wrenching, and I sobbed my way through this episode. It's such a testament to the brother relationship that has built up over 5 seasons, and it is just incredible conclusion to a season that I think, even if you don't love Supernatural, I think season 5 is overall and just a really impressive season of TV. I mean, season 5 was the intention all along. That was what Kripke had in mind. That was how he wanted to end it, and I think it shows, because I think that those storylines all ending in Swan Song just Good. Good writing. Good writing. It's satisfying and sad, and I love it for all an eternity, and yeah. That's my favorite episode of Supernatural. Okay, so those are my top 10, but I thought I would also include some honorary mentions. I'm literally just gonna read them off. So, Nightshifter from season 2. Every time I hear Renegade by Styx, I still think of this episode because it's one of the coolest things the show has ever done. Mystery Spot, Hammer of the Gods, Tall Tales, you know, the really funny episodes. Yellow Fever is another great funny episode. Oh, Jensen Ackles nails it in Yellow Fever. I also love Dark Side of the Moon with the fireworks in heaven. What a brother moment. What a brother moment. There's Death's Door, which is super sad, but really well done. Point of No Return is really great. I mean, the build-up for Dean as a character and the payoff for Dean as a character in that episode. Also, 2 Minutes to Midnight. Like I said, my favorite character introduction of all time is Death, and that's his introduction, where you have the Oh Death song and him walking out of the white car and it's all in slow-mo. Rendered speechless. Okay, there you go. Those are all of my thoughts about the TV show Supernatural. I know I've rambled, but you know what? This was my favorite show for many, many years, and if we just break it off at the first 8 seasons, I would still consider it one of my favorites. There are problems with it, but I invested hours and hours of my time writing fanfiction, reading fanfiction, which is basically all I did for a year of my life. I didn't touch books for a year. I just read fanfiction for Supernatural. If there are other shows that you would like me to list a top 10, top 5, whatever episodes for, please leave those in the comments below. What are your favorite episodes of Supernatural? Are you still watching? I know what's going on in the later seasons, even though I haven't watched them. It doesn't mean that I don't read recaps. Still gotta know what's happening, guys. So let me know your thoughts about that. Thank you so much for watching. I hope that you enjoyed watching me return to the Supernatural trash can where I belong. Yeah, that's pretty much it. I will see you in another video very soon. So